Agut Voch Raboisai. Shkoyach. We are here live in Yerushalayim at the Goldman residence. Shkoyach Rabitz for hosting. We want to try something. We want to go from city to city, place to place on Motzei Shabbosim. Next week, Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to be live in Ranana. And after that, we'll see. So, Yishkoyach everybody for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. I was just in two yeshivas on Thursday night, talking to the Bacharim, and the main message that I have for the boys, and I have also for those who are in the workforce and the Balabatim, and that is, don't forget about Torah. Because there's so many, thousands and thousands of yeshiva guys. They go through the system, and they have this all or nothing attitude. So I've learned Iyun my whole life, and now I'm working, so I need to find a chavrusa for Iyun, and until that happens, I'm not going to touch Daf Yomi. So what happens is, they don't learn for years upon years, and it's a tragedy. Mama's a tragedy. So the message is that no matter what, doesn't matter where you are and what yeshiva you went to, and how much you love Iyun, and Iyun is unbelievable, and that's probably the better way to learn. But we don't know of a better system than Daf Yomi, because Daf Yomi is the consistency of every single day. It's not about the Daf, it's about the Yomi. And when you're in the workforce, to find the chavrusa every single day, 7 days a week, for Iyun is unheard of. And that's why I recommend Daf Yomi, and that's why I'm here in Yerushalayim to be mechazik do'ilam, the guys that do Daf Yomi. If you're doing it, great. If you're not doing it, try it. And if you know somebody that's not doing it, try to get them involved. This week we're starting Maseches Chagiga on Friday, this coming Friday. So just the Belavim Malka is sponsored by Usher Lang from Brooklyn. L'zeich Nishmas, Mr. Fred Lang, Hachaver of Shleima Dovid on his 50 yard site. After the shir, there's a nice spread in the kitchen. And this is our Chaver, Rabbi Lang's father from Brooklyn. Shkoyach for the sponsorship. You're all very familiar with Avigdor Fold from, where is he from? Not Carnation Road. Carnation Road? And Zezi Fold, he comes to the shir very often in the morning. He lives in Ramat Bet Shemesh, but he's also a very famous quarterback for the Blue. Everybody knows Blue, the big Blue. So here he is. I would prefer without the tongue, but here he is. He's a piece of work, Zezi. So Zezi and they won. What is it? The final game? This game?
14-12.
They won. Okay, yeah, he's a very, very good quarterback. But I got a bunch of pictures of Victor, of him learning on the train all the way from Carnation Road, watching his brother's game during the game, the whole thing. But you got to show Zezi as well. Just one short email, and then we're going to jump into it. We're a little late tonight with all the technical difficulties, of course, on the road. I want to share a story with you. A little more than a year ago, I was speaking with a friend at work, and he mentioned that he doesn't have time to learn. You know how many times I heard that? I don't have time. I have to work all day, 16 hours a day. I don't have time for 40 minutes of learning. I suggest that we both come a half hour early to work and learn Megillah. We got about halfway through, and then it fell apart. The schedule was just too hard. Then the Tainus, I went over to him and suggested they join MDY. Instead of waiting until we started the next Masechta, he told me, let's start with Daf is holding right now. He started that day. I asked him how it's going, and he said he doesn't like the beginning, and when you read he doesn't like the emails. Okay, great. I told him that means he's not watching this, so that's good. I told him to skip it, fast forward 1 week. I checked in on him. He was hooked. He loves the shir. We've got another friend at work to join. Moed Katan, I walked into work one day and heard him and the other guy discussing the day's daf. This past Thursday, he made his first siyum on Gemara in his life. All because of your shir, Meir Silver. So here's the gentleman that made the siyum. And this is, yeah. Oh! Shalom Aleichem! Get over here! I know you're going to be able to get over here. Are you able to come? Get over. For this, it's worth it. Wow. Your first siyum ever?
It's my first siyum on a Gemara.
Yeah. Come. Gary, give him some room here. Gee, yeah.
This is silver.
That's Mayor Silver. Mayor, come here, Mayor. Just don't hit those tables. On what?
My computer.
And therefore what? Don't worry about it. This is it. This is the last. Voice, here it is. Now I see God is here also. Shalom Aleichem. So it's your first. Hold on. I don't even know. Here, bend down a little bit. I don't know what's going on here because we don't have Gary on the camera. Shalom Aleichem. How old are you?
I am 32.
32. First siyum ever. We'll finish shots together. Be'ezer Hashem. Shalom Aleichem. Come on, get over here. Guitar. Shalom Aleichem. Shkoyach for getting in. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. The sponsor of the Koilel, HaChodesh, Mr. Anonymous, Lil Nishmas, Chaya Bas Yosef. The seventh Moed Katan is dedicated by the Kessler and Davis families. Refuah shleima for Miriam Esther, Bas Devora bekorov. Michael and Jayme Benmeleh the whole month in memory of Devora, Faige, Shmuel, and Menachem Mendel, Elchanan. May the neshamas have an Aliyah, and may Hashem bring Moshiach bekorov. We lost a dear chaver in his low 40s, Yidi Leibowitz. He was our graphic designer. Reb Sholem Baruch Yudah, Zev Haskell ben Rav Yosef Yichil Michal Shlita. 4th of Adar. What is that for the 4th of Adar? That's today?
Yes, it is.
Lili Nishma, my mother, my teacher, Sarah, Bela, Bat Yisroel, Dovid Kohen on the 34th yard site. Miriam Esther have an Aliyah dedicated by Zev Haskell, Woodmere, New York. And by Marc Brown. Thank you. Thank Andrew for connecting me with the 8-minute daf MDY. Shkoyach. Rabbi Isai, today's daf Chav Dalid, and we're holding on the top of Chav Dalid, Amud Aleph, beyamenu Rabbi Yochanan Shmuel. Asks Rabbi Yochanan of Shmuel. Now we know Rav and Shmuel were in Bavel. Rabbi Yochanan was the Gadol Hadar in Eretz Yisrael, and he asks Shmuel, Yesh avelos b'Shabbos or yein avelos b'Shabbos? Do we have dvarim shebetzina, things that you do private? Do you have to be noig on Shabbos or not noig at all? Is there any avelos at all on Shabbos? Omar lei ein avelos b'Shabbos. Oh, there's no avelos. Even in private, you don't do any avelos. Now we're going to see, and Taisus points out that Rabbi Yochanan didn't accept this from Shmuel. He told him ein avelos. He said, okay, 5 to month. I hold there is avelos. We'll see later on the sugya. So they said in the name of Shmuel, if a ava was over and he had relations during his avelos, chayiv misa. Chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. So, a guy once came to shul, and he says, you heard Yankel, he won $1 million in the lottery. So everybody's schmoozing. Yankel won $1 million. Yankel shows up to shul. He says, it's true that you won $1 million? He says, let me tell you. First of all, it wasn't $1 million, it was $2 million. Second of all, it wasn't a lottery. It was from my business. Third of all, I lost it. I didn't gain it. So, first of all, Osir Itmar. He's not Chayiv Misa. Osir. This is Isser. Big difference between getting your head chopped off and an Isser. Umishmei the Rabbi Yochanan Itmar. First of all, it wasn't Shmuel from Bavel. It was Rabbi Yochanan. So 2 problems I have with that Shmuel. And if in fact there was something that you heard from Shmuel, yes, there's something similar that Shmuel says Yechayiv Misa, but not for Dvarim Shebetzina. Amrat Dachlifa Baravim Yom Shmuel, Avel Shaloi Para V'Shaloi Pirem Chayiv Misa. Avel who doesn't allow his hair to grow, he takes a haircut, and he doesn't rip Kriya, he is Chayiv Misa, not Dvarim Shebetzina. That's halacha that Shmuel said. How do we know this? He darshans it from the pasuk Shenemar Sheichem Al Tifro, Ubigdeichem Lo Yisefroimu V'Lo Yisamusu V'Goymer. that Aaron, the Bnei Aaron, they were nitztava that when Eliezer Avihu died, that they should take haircuts. And they shouldn't cut their clothing, but everybody else cannot take a haircut and has to cut their clothing. Roshechem al tifro, don't let your hair grow long. Uvdechem lo tifroimu, and don't cut your coat. V'lo samusu, then you're not going to die. So we take that pasuk and we flip it around a little bit. Ha acher shlei para v'shlei pirim chayav misa. You have a chiyuv to take a haircut, not your kohanim, but everybody else, they cannot take a haircut. And if they do, it's an interesting limud. We flip the whole pasuk around and we say they're chayav misa. Amar Rav Bar Papa Tana be'evel rabasi. It says in Masechtes Smachos. What is Masechtes Smachos all about? Avelus. So why is it called Masechtes Smachos? Because of a Lashon Aliyah. It's a Lashon Saginar. It's the opposite of a Simcha. So it's called Masechtes Smachos. Avel Aser L'Shamish Mitazeh Be'Evloi. He's also in relations. U'Maisa Bechad Sheshimish Mitazeh Be'Evloi. V'Shamtu Chazirim Es Gviyasai. Two pshatim over here. It's very similar to that Gemara that we had with the wasp. If you remember that Gemara, I think it was also on a Motzei Shabbos. Okay, something similar. Rashi says that Chazirim came and they ate his bris. Others say they ate his body. Gviya usually is a body, but in this case, because it was like a midah connected midah, because he was over, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid him back on that aver. Omar Shmuel Pachaz Choiva Neser Rishus. So we have like this. Pachaz stands for Priyas Roish, and we're talking about on Shabbos. On Shabbos, you can't do these Avelos, the top three. If you want to, you can do the bottom three. Red, cannot do. Green, you could do if you want to. Priyas Roish, to cover your head, like a Avel used to do in those days, you cannot do on Shabbos. Because it's obvious that you're acting by Avelos. People see you with this funny covering that nobody else does, is problematic. Chazoras Kera. Is it with the Aleph or a Ayin? Probably with the Ayin. Oh. Yeah, I see. Okay. You got to take the tier that you have in a shirt or jacket and flip it around. So it'll look something. So first of all, Priyas Roish looks something like this. We'll talk about it a little bit in length. The Chazoras Kera looks like this. Here's the guy. Remember, I made fun that it was a guy who was talking about a woman, but it's actually for this Gemara. You take the shirt and put it on your back. So here's the carrot. If you want to wear that shirt on Shabbos, you can't show it in the front, put it on the back. Obviously, if you have a nice new shirt, you should wear that also.
Have that suit over it.
If nobody sees it, I guess the idea is that nobody should see it. It's probably okay. By the way, Gary's in the shir for 4 years already. Rabbi Isai, we have to give him a round of applause. First question he ever asked. Wow, bomb kashem, Gary. Wow, unbelievable. Halavai, shko weiter, yigashas. Remind me when you asked another question.
When Chanicha used to be open.
Oh, 4 years ago. Yeah, okay, fine. But you ask him since the Beis Medrash. By the way, I'm not kidding. Gary started a new program. He learns Eon at night. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. He's a big Talmud Chacham. He doesn't do the daf with us, but he learns Eon at night. Zog the Gemara. Oh, so we're still holding here. Skivas Mita, we know, but it's Kedai, why not? This is Skivas Mita. You take the bed and you flip it over. This is all in time of the Gemara. We don't have the minhag anymore, and they would sit on this bed. That, you must flip your bed right side up. It's Shabbos, you don't act ba'avelos. Nila sandal, if you want to go barefoot, you may go barefoot on Shabbos. Why? Many people go barefoot. Again, this is the time of the Gemara. Tashmish, relations, it's Dvarim Shevitzina, it's up to you. Rechitza, you can learn like Rashi, means to wash your body, hands, feet. Again, in those days they used to go barefoot, so they had to wash their feet, a lot of mud, even with hot water, but as long as it was boiled before Shabbos. Rashi learns on Shabbos, other Rishonim learn right before Shabbos. Okay, so let's see inside. Pachas chayva. To do Peiches Zayin, these three, you must do it on Shabbos. You must not act ba'avelos. Neser, these three rishos. If you want to do it, fine. What are they? Priyas haroish, to cover your head is a no-no. Can't show up in shul looking like a burqa, like Shalom Aleichem or Dovid. Come in. Why? Because it's an avelos. Chazoras kera, it's with the ayin, la'achayrov, to take the kriya that one did during the week and you have to flip it to the back. Skivas hamita, and flip your bed right side up. Chayva. That you have to do at Shabbos. Nilas hasandal, not everybody wears their shoes. Tash b'shamita, dvarim shebetzina. Rechitz zidayim reglayim, b'chamim again, nobody will know. Arvis, in the evening, or when Shabbos is in, according to Rashi, Rishos. Rav Omar, so that's Shmuel. Rav Omar, af, priyas haroish, Rishos. Not everybody will realize that you're ba'avelos if you wear this thingy on your head. We'll go into it. Shmuel asked the Gemara, not everybody puts on shoes. In those days, many people didn't have shoes. Many people walked around barefoot. So if you don't wear shoes, nobody's going to know that it's because of avelos. Why does Shmuel say it's usher to cover your hair like the Shalom Aleichem? Why is it a big deal? Says the Gemara, Shmuel tamei, dama Shmuel, kol kera she'ene b'shas chimum, enoi kera. So here we have a new idea. Is Kriya has to be done the day, right now we're going to say the day, we're going to fix it a little bit maybe. Kriya must be done the day of the tsar, the day of the death of the person. Now let me ask you, many times, I don't know, a lot of yours young, Baruch Hashem, so you don't know about this, but many times people go, let's say they go with the Aron Teretz Yisrael. When did they do Kriya? 2 days later, by the basic Kvaras. But it says it has to be B'shas Chimum. So Taisus goes into it and says, if, first of all, if somebody didn't do Kriya, then of course you have to do Kriya later on. But another Pshat in Taisus says that a person can make a Chimum at any given time. If you do something new that creates this terrible feeling of loss that a person has in the first day, then he could do Chimum, then he could do Kriya then as well. And that applies to everything, says Taisus, to not only a parent, to a Rebbe, to other relative, whatever it is. If let's say the person died on Sunday and he had a tremendous tsar then, and then he calmed down, but then somebody brought up a halacha that he said, it's a story, and that invigorated this terrible feeling of tsar, then he's allowed to tear kriya then as well, says Taisus. So, says the Gemara, Kol kera she'eno b'shas chimum eno kera. And if a person rips kriya not during the shas chimum when he's terribly sad, it doesn't count for anything. Eno kera. In fact, if a person rips his shirt when he's not in terrible pain, what is he over on? What avera? Baltashchas. Tearing his clothing for no reason. V'chol atifa she'eno ka'atifas yishmeilim eno atifa. If you don't cover your head like an Arab, that's not covering your head. So what does it mean? So there is a machlokes actually, and we discussed it in the beginning of the Masechta. One pshat is that you come over your head all the way down to here, this way. And another pshat is you come upwards this way. That's why I believe most people, besides me and the Gronics, they take their talus and they go over their eyes. Their yaitza, the Rishonim that say it's this way. Then they take the talus and they're very careful to whip the guy next to them with the tzitzis. And they cover the bottom part. To be yaitza both shitas. So that's atifas yishmeilim. One of those two shitas. The guy is always the gra. There's a machlokes how you put your mezuzah. Do you put it straight up like this? Or you put it like this? So what does everybody do? They go like this. That's why a mezuzah is on an angle. The gra passing is like the Rashba, I think it is. and he says it's straight. Svardim also. A lot of times the Guras like the Svardim. Yeah. He's very into deciding. So it's possible. That's why when I do like this, I just go up to here and that's it. I don't do the whipping thing. Zog the Gemara. Machvir of Nachman at Gube the Dikna. Where do you bring the towels down? Till here. Gube the Dikna, I think, would mean right over here. These two bald spots that you have under your lip. So you bring the towels all the way down here. Some Rishonim say, what do you mean? What, Yishmaelim? They didn't know where they're going? They all had walking sticks? Like, if the towel's up there, how could they see? That's why they say it's from bottom up. That's the machlokes. Okay. This is that Shmuel says that you have to uncover your head. You have to take off this special covering, this Yishmaelim thing on Shabbos. Otherwise, everybody will know that you're Babils. That's because you're not wearing shoes. Everybody sees, look, you could look like an Arab all you want. You could put a big giant thing on your eyes and cover your eyes. But people see you wearing shoes. And everybody knows if you're wearing shoes, you're not Ba'avelos. So it's like a big sign on yourself. I'm not acting Ba'avelos. So what if my covering's over my eyes? Says the Gemara, continue. Kol kera she'enu b'shas chimu min kera. As we said a second ago, if you tear when you're not upset about the avelos, it's not considered tearing. V'amru lei l'Shmuel. We have a question. They told Shmuel, noch nafshi the Rav, the famous Rav and Shmuel, all over Shas. Rav and Shmuel, they constantly argue with each other, even on this daf. So they said to Shmuel, just a few lines ago, we had a machlekes Rav and Shmuel. They told Shmuel, Rav was nifter. Kara alei treisar money. He ripped his clothing 12 times. What does that mean? The Gemara understands that it means 12 different days, 12 consecutive days. Now, you just said that you could only rip your clothing the day of the Misa. How did he rip his clothing 12 times? And why did he do it? Omar. Ozal Gavra Dahava Mistafino Minei. And the Rishonim explain, Shalom Aleichem Uri, have a seat, come. Shmuel says that Rav kept him in check. I understand this 100%. Like, when I have to prepare a shear, I have to make sure I know what I'm doing because everybody jumps on me. As soon as every shear, I make a mistake. Every shear. And there's always an email. You said it this way, it's that way. And sometimes it's really embarrassing, especially the time I said that when a chicken gets pregnant, I get it, whatever. There's a lot of different mistakes. Fine. But I have to learn my chavrusa. I prepare before I learn the chavrusa, and then I go to my chavrusa. And he knows Kol HaTorah Kula, and in seconds, if I say something, I give him, usually I like to write down a sikum, especially when I do the 8-minute daf. I put it all down in a synopsis, and I give it to him. And in seconds, he's brilliant. He looks at it and he goes, oh, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake here, da-da-da, like that. So you have to be on your toes. When you have somebody that keeps you on your toes, the learning is completely different. If somebody just opens up an art scroll and he wants to be Yotze design, nobody's going to check. So somebody just reads it, somebody he knows what he's talking about, somebody doesn't. But when Rav is there, and Rav is going to criticize Shmuel, it's a whole different learning. It's on a different level. Says Shmuel, I just lost the guy that keeps him in check. I'm not scared of anybody else. I'm scared of Rav. So I have to rip Kriya 12 times. They told Rabbi Yochanan, same generation as Rav and Shmuel in Eretz Yisrael, as we just saw here. They told Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Chanina was nifter. He tore 13 clothing of melas, of silk, ties, I don't know whatever he had made out of silk. Omar, again, Rabbi Yochanan said the same exact thing. Here's somebody that kept me in line with my learning, made me learn stronger and better, and he's gone. So bottom line, what's the question? The question is, we just said that you only do Kriya the day of. Here is, you have 2 cases, 12 days in a row, 13 days in a row. Shani Rabbanon, the Kivin, the Kol Shaita, Matkir Shmatayu, Keshas, Chimum Dami. So here's where Taisus got his idea. That there is a situation where a person is so sad about the Ptira, like the day of the Ptira. Whatever it is. So when it comes to G'dailim, and there's another Gadol that remembers a Dvar Torah that the other Gadol says, Shmuel also remembers, Oi, Rav told me this and this. And then it all over again. It starts all over again. Those terrible feelings of tsar come back. And when you have the terrible feeling of tsar, you rip a kriya. But he wouldn't rip it stam, like, every morning at the same time he would rip. He'd wait during the day until he remembered Rav and he was really sad about it, then he ripped. Ravin Barad told Rav, your Talmud, Rav Amram said, Tanya, Avil Kol Shiva, Koiroi Lefanov. All 7 days, the Kriya, Kiroi Lefanov, the Kriya is right in front of him, Vimbala Hachlif. If he wants to change it up, he wants to wear new clothing, Machlif, the Koireya, and he has to rip his clothing again. There is a Eitzah, we know this idea, from the 9 days. If an Aval wants to wear new clothing, so somebody else has to wear it for a day or two. Some say for an hour or two, a few minutes, like 9 days, but there is this idea that you could wear. But he has to rip it again. He has to tear it again. Is that a question? Yes. Why? Because we just said that you only tear your clothing the day of the Misa. We're talking about 3 days later, his shirt is all smelly, so he decides to put on another shirt, and he has to rip the Kriya again, he has to tear Kriya. But it's not the day of the Misa. That's the Gemara's question. And we're just going to continue out the Braisa. B'Shabbos, Kirei La'achara. In Shabbos, you take the tear, you flip, you take your sleeve, you just put on the shirt backwards. Interesting way to go to shul, no? The collar that way, tie over here, whatever, okay. Bimbola Achlef. Bachrim do it, okay. No, Bachrim, they flip the shirt inside out. They put you know what I'm talking about? They wear it normal, but they just flip. Okay. Nobody's. Shall I do a demonstration? Of course, on Shabbos, you put on a new shirt, Erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos comes in. You don't do Kriya. But the bottom line is, the question is, how do you do Kriya when it's not the day of the Misa? We're not talking about the halacha of Kriya, we're talking about the special respect that you give a parent, a father, a mother, and that you do another Kriya. You're right. You're not as sad as the day of the Misa. You don't have those same emotions. And you shouldn't have to do Kriya then, but we do it just for the kavod. So let's say a person's father is nifter on a Sunday. On a Wednesday, he decides he has to switch out the shirt. It's enough. He's very hot, sweaty. That gets another shirt. Does Kriya. We learned that for a parent, you never do a special stitch. You could maybe put it together a little bit, but in those days, shirts were very expensive, jackets were very expensive. So for a parent, you never stitch it up beautifully. What about this Kriya that he did on a Wednesday, 3 days after his father's ptira, in which he really didn't have to, but he did it for the kavod? Could he stitch it up? Could he stitch it up? We have the father, remember this, the father of Rav Oishia is one mandamar, and Bar Kapara is another mandamar. They're both arguing. I don't know who says what. I just know that one says you could and the other one says you can't. I'll prove it to you. That's the father of Rav Yishaya that said no good. Because Rav Yishaya, the son, this is the Avuah of Rav Yishaya, the father of Rav Yishaya. I guess he was known as the father of this tremendous Rav Yishaya. Rav Yishaya himself says, Ein Misachem. So it only makes sense that where did Rav Yishaya get it from? Rav Yishaya got it from his own father, right? It would make sense. So we know that the father of Yishai is the one that said, do not stitch it up nicely, even though you did it in the middle of the week, far away from the Misa. Says Gemara, Loi, it makes more sense. You thought you got us, you figured it out. You didn't figure it out. Yes, Rav Yishai's father was his father, but he had a Rebbe called Bar Kapara, and he most likely got halachas from his Rebbe, not from his father. So we still don't know who said what. Amar Rava, okay, new halacha. Amar Rava. On Shabbos, Ava Matayil be'unkeli b'soich beisai. Says Rava, again, this is Dvarim Shebetzina. How does a person walk around in his own bedroom? Could he walk around with Kriya or not? It's Shabbos. Same question that we started off the daf. Dvarim Shebetzina, Noyeg, not Noyeg. Says Rava, if he wants to, he could walk around in his own house. Nobody will know about. Says the Gemara, Abaya Ashkechel Rav Yosef. Again, all over Shas, we have Rav Yosef, the Rebbe, and Abaya. You have Abaye always asking Rav Yosef, his Rebbe, questions. I'm assuming that he didn't knock on the door. He just walked into his Rebbe's house. Because had he knocked, maybe the story would have been a little different. He walks into the house, somehow, he gets in there, and he sees his Rebbe, the Paris, Leisudra Areshe, Vazavasi. He sees his Rebbe walking, pacing back and forth with a head covering. Now, head covering is for Avelos. I was one Zaycha as a kid, I was maybe 12 years old. I went to visit Reb Don Segal. Zolzang Gesund. I don't know if you know. He's a very, very, very chashuv person. I had a Kessler with him because I learned in Tifrach as a kid, and he's Moshiach, whole thing. So I went to his house. Actually, I went with my father on Hanukkah, and the Rebbitzin said, "Wait, the Moshiach is busy." So in Bnei Brak in those days, they had these doors with glass that would close. The sliding doors. Remember the sliding doors close with like this milky glass, and we're looking at the glass, and all of a sudden we see this figure, boom, boom, just flying around the table. He didn't know we're in the house. And he's dancing, he's singing by himself around the table, the Hanukkah stuff that, whatever. We left the big Roshim. He's like, and everything, fast, like by himself. Okay. Abaye comes into the house, and he sees Rav Yosef going around like this. And Rav Yosef doesn't notice him because he's wearing this covering. Amalei, excuse me, Rebbe. What are you doing? Why are you wearing a head covering on Shabbos? You're not supposed to. Remember, on the top of the Amud, Rabbi Yochanan has Shmuel. What's the halacha? Do you have to be noig b'tzina, not b'tzina? Says Shmuel, no. Ein avelos b'Shabbos. You don't wear a head covering. That's Rabbi Yochanan as Shmuel. And over here, you see that Rabbi Yochanan says, Dvarim shebetzina noyek. If I'm by myself in the living room, I wear a head covering. I take off my shoes. I don't do Dvarim shebetzina. And that's why he caught me red-handed. Rabbi Lezoimer. B'shachar beis hamikdash atzeres b'Shabbos. So I just want to show you this real quickly. You can look it up in the Mishnah. I'm just trying to save you some time here. I have to do one of these because I can't see it on the screen. Rabbi Lezer says, "Meshachar beis hamikdash atzeres b'Shabbos." You want to look it up? It's on Daf Yutes. It's a long time ago. The Mishnah, still in the same Mishnah. What's going on here? Oh, yeah, but I have to look over there. Oh, Meshachar beis hamikdash atzeres b'Shabbos. Atzeres means Shavuos. Shavuos is how many days? 1 day. So he says, if Shavuos falls out in the middle of Avelos, since it's only 1 day, so it doesn't do anything. You don't get a break. It doesn't cut off all of the Shiva. You continue Shiva after Shabbat, after Shavuos. Just like Shabbos doesn't stop the Shiva. Shiva continues immediately after Shabbos. So too Shavuos. Next shita is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim Kirugalim. The Rosh Hashanah is Yom Kippur also is like a Yantif. If Rosh Hashanah falls out of the middle of Shiva, it stops the Shiva. If Rosh Hashanah falls out of the middle of Shleishim, it stops the Shleishim. No. Atzeres el atzeres kiregalim. Shavuos, and we're going to see, we could say it again, why not? If a person forgets to bring a carbon, tremendous chiddush. When I learned the first time, I was shocked. You have to bring a carbon on Shavuos. Every time you come to the Beis HaMikdash, for the Shalosh Regalim, you have to bring karbanos. On Pesach, you bring a carbon Pesach. But this is a list of karbanos one has to bring when he goes for Pesach. And when he comes for Sukkot, don't forget. By the way, I have this. I was makar tova to my wife Barabim today. Why? I filled up a whole cup of, when I was washing my hands, I filled it all up. And I realized when I filled up the thing, it was on the hot water. And now our hot water is instant hot. So when you just turn on the faucet a little bit, the Yunkers goes on, fire goes on. You're turning on a fire on Shabbos. That lachar is a shaygig. It cost me $500. I have to bring a nice chatos when Moshiach comes. She saved me. She turned off the Yunkers before Shabbos. Fine. First time ever. First time she's ever done it. I told her during the week, we have to start doing it because of this. Just in case somebody does it, it's a chashash shaygig. Anyway. But when Moshiach comes, when the Beis HaMikdash comes, we have to bring karbanos, a number of karbanos. One of them is Oilas Riyah. Every time you go to the Beis HaMikdash, bring Oilas Riyah. And every Yom Tov you have to bring a Shalmi Chagiga. Right over here. Shalmi Simcha, Shalmi Chagiga. Let's say a guy goes to the Beis Hamikdash on Shavuos, doesn't have money, whatever. He doesn't have 2 korbanos. He doesn't have the korbanos. He has an entire week to bring the korban. Why? Chiddush Atzum. Because on Sukkot you have 7 days. And on Pesach you have 7 days. So we gave you 7 days to pay it back on Shavuos as well. So say Chachamim, therefore Shavuos acts like a Yom Tov. It has 7 days. So it has 7 days. It cancels out all Shiva. However, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that don't have these korbanos, you don't have to you can't make up a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Therefore, that acts as a Shabbos. Okay. Says the Gemara, where are we holding? Wow, we're late. The halacha is like Reb Gamliel right over here. The Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is like a Yom Tov. This Gemara, Boisai, is for me one of the most difficult Gemaras in Shas to read and to talk about. But it's Torah, and this is what we do. We're learning the halachas of Avelus. And Be'ez Hashem, because we are sitting here and we're going to be learning these halachas, we should never know from these things. Never, ever know about burying a child, burying a little kid. Says the Gemara. The first, if a baby dies within 30 days of the birth, Tinoik yoytze b'cheik. So Machlokes Rishonim exactly, is it talking about a baby that came to full term or not full term? But in general, if it didn't last for 30 days, then it's a nafel, and you don't even make a real funeral with a aran and a mita. You just hold the baby in your arms. I unfortunately saw this once. It's very, very sad, and it brings back a lot of bad memories. Just hold the baby. V'nikvar b'isha achas v'shnei anashim. You don't do a whole thing. There's no 10 people, 3 people. Not only 3 people bury it, but one of the 3 could be a woman. And there's no chashash yichud when there's 2 men and 1 woman. By the way, what the minhag is that if it's a boy, they do a bris milah on the boy right there by the caver, and they name it a name so that it has tchias hamesim, and by tchias hamesim, everybody knows it's a Jewish kid, etc. And also, they don't allow the parents to know where the caver is. I know of people that searched and found the caver, and I know one person in particular that's very upset at himself for doing that and finding it, and it brings a lot of emotions later on, and they go, and every year, and it's a whole, that particular person wished that he didn't know about it, that he didn't try to figure it out, and the other person I know is happy that he figured it out. So, but the Chaver Kedisha doesn't allow it. They don't even allow the driver to know where it is. One person goes and buries. Fine. They don't bury 1 man and 2 women because the Beis Kfaras has a problem of yichud because it's secluded, and therefore that is more of a problem. 1 man and 2 women is a problem of yichud. Sponsored, let's see if I can get this, if I can even read this. Sponsored by Moshe Horn, 4, in honor of Woody, Shui Kale twins, the Shui Kale twins, I think. I just wrote it in my own handwriting last second. Fine. Sponsored in honor of Rebelli, wishing him atzlacha in all his endeavors, both in Gashmis and Ruchnis. Thank you. Top of Daf Yomi Amud Beis, Abishol Oimer, Abishechod Ushtei Noshim. Fine. Ve'noim demalo b'shuro. This young child, Rahman al-Islan, you don't do the typical minhag of making 2 rows and the Avelim go through the rows, no rows. You don't make the bracha, and you're not Menachem, you don't say Menachem Menachem. Ben Shloishim, if the kid was 30 days old, Yoytze b'dluskima. So you put him in an aron, you put him in a nice little box. If you Oimer, Loy dluskima, and he tells Bakotev, not a simple box that 1 person carries. Elani tells Bagapayim, it's a box that you need 2 people to carry it. You give more covet. These are different levels of respect that you give the mace. This is not a great respect, but more respect. V'aynim olav b'shura, and you do the 2 rows of people. V'ayim olav birkus avelim, and you make the bracha, and then chumi avelim, and you menachem him. Ben Yud Beis chodesh, if it's a baby that's a year old, yoytze b'mita, then you put him on this what is it called? Like a stretcher kind of thing, a mita. A what? Beer? Yeah. B-E-I-R? What? B-I-E-R. Rebbe Kiva Omer, Hu ben Shana ve'evarev kevin shtayim. Says Rebbe Kiva, you have to have 2 conditions. First of all, he has to be at least 1 year old, but he has to be a larger kid. Hu ben shtayim ve'evarev kevin shana, then yoytze b'mita. Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar Omer, hayoytze b'mita, Rabbi matzivin olav. If they take him out in this beer, in this whatever it's called, then matzivim is a lashon of their face reddens. They're sad. It invokes pain and sadness. And if it's not in the mita, then it's a lesser darga of tsar. If it's a kid that used to go to shul, I'm saying from the Rishonim, a known kid, people know about him, then you have more people coming to the funeral and dealing with him. Unknown kid, then not. How do we do that? This would be almost counterintuitive. It would be almost the opposite of what you thought. If I asked you, which kid should be maspid? The wealthier kid at an earlier age, or the one that comes from a poor family? So the Gemara says the one that comes from a poor family, you're maspid at a younger age. Why? What's the svara? So there's a number of svaras given in Rishonim here that aniyim, they don't have much in their life. The only thing they really have is their children. So it's a lot greater tzar. That's what some Rishonim say. Others say a different svara, that the aniyim, they spend so much of their resources in the children. Everything they have, they put in the children. So Mela, that's another reason why at a younger age you're masked for them and the Ashirim not. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmoi, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, Aniyim b'nei Chamesh, Ashir b'nei Sheish. Okay, just pushes off the dates. But again, it's the same idea that Aniyim come before Ashir. B'nei Skeinim kivnei Aniyim. If a Zaken has a younger child, he's like an Ani. Why? So they say because a Zaken, somebody who's old, is relying on this child to take care of him in his really old age. And I just lost his caregiver. Omer Rav Gidel bar Menashe Omer Rav Aloch Rabbi Yehuda Shomar Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. Aloch is like Rabbi Shmuel. Darash Rabbi Anani bar Sasain Apischa de Benesia. Notice these words here. It's literally word for word what we're going to have in the story coming up right after this. Stands Rabbi Anani, but it's amazing that different people, different country, different everything, but the same words. He stood at the opening at the door of the Nasi. The Nasi is the one in charge of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. If a person sits Shiva one day before Shavuos and then including Shavuos, Harei Kan Arba Asar. What's going on here? We know Yontif acts as a break in the Shiva. So if a person, all he has to do is act ba'avelos for a moment before Yontif comes in. So if he acts ba'avelos for a moment, that moment is considered 7 days. Because now Yontif comes. Now Yontif comes along. So he acted ba'avelos erev Yontif. Now Yontif comes in. Poof, he's done with Shiva. How much is that worth? That one moment that he sat? 7 days. But now you have 7 actual days of Yontif that he can't even do anything. So now I have a total of 14 days. So when it comes to Shloshim, he'll only have to observe another 16 days of Shloshim. Shloshim is 30 days, minus 14. Now he has 16 left. Tremendous chiddush. What's the chiddush here? The chiddush is that Shavuos, we're talking about Erev Shavuos, and Shavuos is only 1 day, not 7 days. So how do we count Shavuos as 7 days? The answer is Because of this. Since on Shavuos you have to bring a carbon, and if you forget to bring a carbon, you have 7 full days to bring the carbon afterwards. So Shavuos is counted as 7 days. So Erev Shavuos is 7 days. Shavuos is 7 days. Total 14 days. Shama Rabbi Ami Vikbad. Says Rabbi Ami, what are you saying? Why are you pretending that you made this halacha up yourself? It's your halacha. It's somebody else. Now listen to this. Dorash Rabbi Yitzchak Napcha, not Rabbi Nani, a completely different person. Another Tana. Rabbi Yitzchak Napcha, Akila the Reish Galusa on the porch of the Reish Galus in Bavel. Before is the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael. Now it's the Reish Galus. Who's the Reish Galus? The guy in charge of all of Klai Yisrael in Chutz La'aretz. One Erev Shavuos is 7 days, and Shavuos itself is considered another 7 days. Hareken Arbasa. So, by the way, Bizman Hazeh, there's some that say that there's the idea of Aliyah L'Regel, and that's why people go to the Kaisel, they flock the Kaisel by Shavuos. And I don't know if you noticed, but people will go to the Kaisel the entire week after Shavuos because of this Gemara. If you miss the Kaisel on Shavuos, you go, based on this Gemara, you still have that tashlumim, so to speak. Did anybody ever notice that? I'm making that up. Reb Chaim Kanievsky comes after Shavuos. Beautiful. Oh, shkoyach. Chaim Kanievsky comes to the Kaisel after Shavuos based on this. Gewaldig. Shama Rav Sheshes. Listen to this. Before is Shama Rebbe Yami. Over here is Rav Sheshes. It's the same exact story, word for word, different characters, different people. And here's Rav Sheshes. He was upset. Why is he upset? Ikbet. Omar Atudidei. Is it your Torah? It's somebody else. It's Rebbe Shaya. But that name is the same because he's the one that authored the halacha. Here we go. How do we know that Shavuos you could bring a carbon if you forgot to bring the carbon? On Shavuos you could bring it for 7 days. Shenemar b'chag hamatzos u'b'chag hashvuos. Yeah, chag hamatzos, chag hashvuos, chag sukkos. Yeah, it's all in the same pasuk. Ma chag hamatzos yishel tashlumim kol shiva. Matzos, Pesach, you can bring, if you don't bring these korbanos, well, obviously, korban Pesach, you have to bring Erev Yom Tov. Oilas Riyah and Shalmish Simcha. These two. This is one of the questions I like to ask people that don't do Daf Yomi. You pretend that you know it. Somebody asks you, how many korbanos do you bring when Moshiach comes to the Beis Hamikdash for Pesach? So everybody says, oh, korban Pesach. No, 5. You have to bring 5 korbanos. 4 or 5. But the Shalmei Simcha and the Oilas Riyah, which apply to Sukkot and Shavuos also, you bring it all 7 days if you don't bring it. Says the Gemara Adbrei, Rav Popular of Avios Sovov Darash. So Rav Papa took Rav Avi on a walk. They were walking around, spatziring, a tiul in the streets over there. And he said, and he darshaned, gave him a shtikol Torah. The same exact thing that we just said by Shavuos applies also to Rosh Hashanah. Now, what's the tremendous chiddush here? What's the kasha? Or boy, somebody asked the kasha. What's the kasha? Oh, tashlumim, very good. Everybody has the kasha together. Give out. There's no carbon on Rosh Hashanah. So why is Rosh Hashanah worth 7 days? It's not Shavuos. Shavuos you can bring him for 7 days. Rosh Hashanah you can't bring him for 7 days. So the Ramban talks about it. The Ramban says that once we know this idea from Shavuos, now we learn for all the Yom Tovim. Hareken Arbasa. Now, a bigger question that all the Rishonim talk about is, why do I care if Rosh Hashanah is worth 14 days? What comes immediately after Rosh Hashanah? Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur is going to knock it out anyways. It's going to knock out your entire shleishim. If you do Rosh Hashanah, and you have a few weekdays, and so Yom Kippur comes, knocks it out. So one of the answers that the Rishonim talk about is that maybe it doesn't knock it out. Or one that says, okay, you're right, it does knock it out. We're just saying. One is that maybe because it's so, they're one after another, you have to act ba'avelos a little bit in order for Yom Kippur to knock it out. Omer Avina, Hilkoch, Yom Echad Lefnei HaChag, one day before Sukkos v'Chag. So you have the 7 days of Sukkos plus the one day before Sukkos equals 14. Right? The one day before Sukkos is 7. The 7 days of Sukkos is another 7, 14. But guess what? What's the final day of Sukkos? It's not even Sukkos anymore. It's called Shmini Atzeres. It's another Yontif. It's Simchas Torah. That's a whole nother Yontif. Ushmini Shaloi. So that's another 7 days. Hareikan Ezrim Ve'echot. 7 plus 7 plus 7. 21. So Mela, how many days are you left with the Shloshim? 9. Ravina Igla the Surah the Pras. Ravina went to Surah Pras. Omer Rav Chaviva Mesur the Pras and Ravina. Omar Mar. Yom Echad Lefnei Rosh Hashanah v'Rosh Hashanah Hareikan Arba'asar. He asked him a question. Is it true that you said that one day before Rosh Hashanah is like 7 plus 7? Omar Lei, and with this we're going to finish tonight. Ano mistabra k'rim Gamliel udamina. Hey, no, get a niggin regan. As soon as we finish, we're going to start a niggin. A good one. Ano mistabra k'rim Gamliel udamina. All I said is that the Allah is like K'rim Gamliel. I didn't say anything about Rosh Hashanah. You want to infer from that Rosh Hashanah? Fine. Why not? So some of the Rishonim explain, like the question we had before. Why would I say that Rosh Hashanah equals 14 when there's the question that the Rishonim asked that there's Yom Kippur afterwards? Why would I even say that? I would never say that. You want to infer from that? Fine. But all I said is that the Allah is like Gamliel. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful week. Tomorrow morning at 7:15 from MDY. And next week, Be'ez Hashem, in Ranana, in a beautiful, beautiful location. Have a gewaldige week. La 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 la.